Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do a video on traits and their application, how you can actively choose the traits that you want to embody as a person, and the autonomy that kind of comes with that, of course, as like an idea. I definitely want to start using my camera again because I feel like uploading on my phone isn't always the most nice to watch. I'm aware of that. Sometimes using a camera can't, because I've started uploading in low resolution because my Wi-Fi is causing me issues. So I will improve the quality, and hopefully it will make my videos more better to watch, as a note. But yeah, I want to talk about traits of how you can traits. These are some of my traits that I want to embody as a person. Obviously they're going to be different for every person, but I think life, society and people can bring this sense of like dictating the traits that you should pursue, or like make you in some way warped, in the sense that if you're not kind of pursuing a certain way of life or way of being, you're kind of wrong, or like not fulfilling your like duties as a person or something, just from some like cluster of thoughts that can come about from like even like embodying not embodying but even being around a toxic person, that kind of can evoke ideas, or toxic relationships and stuff. Like, I'm very much like a believer of the sense of law of attraction, where you can develop clusters of thoughts within like periods of like, I think with it takes like, I can't remember what the actual rule is, but you can develop clusters of thoughts around something that might not even be true, and then you can just embody false ideas, or you can internalize false ideas. And once you actually, I think it comes with a sense of like obviously processing the past and trauma, and like obviously that sort of stuff, which can help sort of dispel like false truths. But actively writing down traits and the application that they can be like in your life can help to sort of guide your behavior, belief system, and sort of like sense of self that you carry amongst your actual, like in your self-esteem and in your actual behavior, overall well-being, I suppose. Help you prioritize, because we do have autonomy over our priorities. Again, when sometimes obviously certain things come up in life that you can't control, especially in the past or whatever, you feel like your priorities have to take a back seat to other things that come up, which are whatever. But you can generally choose your priorities, and obviously usually when you had to do that, it's because your priority is something that you need to do. But as you free yourself from toxic people, you should have more space to develop priorities that are more maybe of choice, and not through trauma bonding and fear based things. So anyway, I'm going to delete some content because my camera's about to stop. So anyway, let me get into my list. So my first one is composure. I think when I was struggling with issues in the past, I think it's a sense of, for me, composure balanced with, as I've put underneath, authentic emotion. Because I think it's not about being consistently like robotic for me. It's about expressing true emotion regardless of who is there and who is not. Because like, even though obviously toxic people aren't going to validate you, it's not a case of like not showing your true emotion because you're not going to be toxic. You're not going to be validated. Like, obviously if you grow up in a toxic household, you may feel that you struggle to express emotion if you haven't like learned how to do it, or you're sort of like constantly berated for it, and you might have to feel like you have to do it on your own or whatever else. But even so, expressing authentic emotion, that got deep. Prioritizing, so like prioritizing people, prioritizing certain people in your life that are healthy, and people that are sort of like gonna benefit mutually, and disregarding the rest. Because I'm very much a believer recently of like, if you're not invited into my circle, like, obviously the thing about toxic people is they want dominance. They're not gonna like sit back and comply often. The reason they'll either go for you or don't is because this snake sense of like whether they feel like they can get supply or something from you. But like, I'm not saying you're going to be attacked and like kind of pursued by every toxic person, but toxic people like obviously are like snakes or like domination minded. So when you actually prioritize people that you choose to prioritize and you just start to discard the rest, I feel like it's a sense of like, if you don't engage, that's one thing you're not supposed to do with narcissists. If you don't engage, obviously they will engage you if they want to, and they sort of will like try and program you through their pathology to align with their own, and obviously that's not your place to be aligned with their compliance because of their delusions. But like when you like disregard, and I don't know, when I say delusions I sound like I'm gaslighting. Some people genuinely do have delusions of mental health, and I'm not changing that because they can have had a very traumatic rough life, so I'm not going to discard people that have genuine delusions and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But narcissists nonetheless have a delusional mindset, so mental health problems and issues, and then narcissists who are delusional might not be experiencing genuine spiritual delusions but are still mentally delusional in their mindset of grandiosity and various other things. So anyway, just to sidestep mental illness there, but obviously narcissism is on the mental health diagnosis spectrum. It's a disorder. Some probably people would consider it an illness, but it's not an illness particularly. It's a can be comorbid with illnesses, but I'd say I'm not a psychologist, but there we go. Prioritizing people, I do, and disregarding the rest. I think when you don't obviously engage a toxic person, and I do think once you do transcend and set boundaries within yourself, which is obviously ongoing, you're going to repel a lot of different toxic people, especially when you like come to terms with the like people that are the types of people, and I think I've done a past video on like how there's different types of toxic people, like that are obviously different people have different traits, and like you get some people that are toxic that are paranoid, you get some people that are literally completely detached from reality and delusional in their mentality because they literally can't sit with themselves, and they may have had no one to project on, so they literally they're literally mentally like on another like realm, as I said. They're so like lost to actually, you know, make sense of their strange, you know, pathology. And you get a variety of people in between. You get sort of like sensitive, vulnerable narcissists, and like sort of maybe potentially borderline traits comorbid with narcissism. I think I have borderline traits, but I'm also empathic, so my borderline traits mainly come out when I feel angry. Because someone's annoying me, and I tend to do this sort of like Robin Hood idea of like, I'll just take out my borderline rage, which is more like sociopath. They say when you heal from like abuse and stuff, narcissists don't have the ability to heal, but I think for me, because I'm empathic and because I have like, I think I've healed a lot from my borderline traits and still am healing. I've healed a massive amount from my borderline traits. Just because like they say that's you can develop borderline traits because of the natural sense of I've talked about this in the past, like I don't want to get too tangenty because I do tend to do that, and it's not going to be the best to watch if I start just rambling, but they do say obviously like borderline traits, things like fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, blah blah blah. If you've been rejected and abandoned through your whole life, of course you're going to have traits of like borderline that you can identify. As I said, I'm not diagnosed, I don't plan to be diagnosed, but those sort of traits do dissipate obviously with healing and processing that, and obviously distancing yourself from toxic people. And then like that's where my sort of like borderline sort of anger, sociopathic, you know, outbursts might come out, but generally that can be a sense of empathic supernova as well. So there we go. But empathic supernova is where the empaths just had enough and like get really angry. So yes, but so back to my list: prioritizing the people I do and disregarding the rest. But also fighting for myself when necessary, because some people don't really take the hint. They might be kind of stupid. They might just be really like, as I said, delusional, kind of stuck in their minds to actually validate their kind of reality. They might have had that happen. I just saw something on Google that enablers are chronic validators, and sort of they try and keep the truths alive within a narcissist's mind. I honestly don't know, like, I mean, it's just what it is. So enablers, part of narcissism, like they're sort of like group or people that they tend to associate with, because they don't have friends because they only care to dominate people. They don't actually benefit from mutual reciprocal, they can't, for a start, mutually reciprocate a relationship. But not only that, they don't want to, they don't have the ability to. If you think like a snake, again, like it relating it to snakes, like they don't mutually validate each other or anything. It's literally like a sense of, you know, dominance that they seek, and sort of that sort of thing. Which is why fighting for yourself when necessary is important. And I don't think it's a sense of like retaliation if possible, because reactive abuse is a thing, and as I said, always forgive yourself when you get into reactive abuse, not your fault. So I've definitely been in that position. But and obviously when you're around toxic people, it's inevitable you're going to react because they're so infuriating and whatever. That's just why they have to project on you, because they're so vile as people, they can't even sit with it themselves. But when you, when I mean fight for yourself, I mean set boundaries in your own mind, but also with them when necessary. For example, project back at them what they are doing. Once you internally understand the mind of a toxic person, or can kind of connote it from what you pick up, empaths and stuff, they're very intuitive. Even general people, you can suss out a person just by their very behaviour or whatever. I even talk about energetic sense of, they have this narcissist, they have the constant vibration of irritability and sort of resentment and anger, just low vibrational resonation. So even on an energetic level, you might be able to sense it. So fighting for yourself when necessary. It's just a case of, you know, just standing up for yourself. I think often, if you do have enough you know, healing behind you and faith and grounding in true source, aka God or yourself, whatever that means. I believe that you can't do anything in your own strength. That's my personal belief, but I'm not putting religious or spiritual, you know, stuff onto anyone else. But I believe that when it comes to the hard things in life, I have to rely on a higher power to give me that strength. But whether you see it as like a strength that comes from within yourself, or whatever else you get strength from, then that's your kind of avenue. I also obviously do it. I also really enjoy things like meditation. My holistic realms are quite diverse. I've been known to do tarot and stuff as well. So. But anyway, yes. So yeah. But yes, so just, yeah, and I've done so many videos on toxic people and stuff, so I would suggest looking back at those for specifics on kind of defending yourself and identifying toxicity in other people, because I've done so many videos recently on there. The next one is that I've written is self-connectedness, healing, to an extent. So just taking time for things like journaling. I think I've written this down later as well, but self-connectedness and healing, and a healing extent. I don't know what I've written there, but I think just kind of keeping on top of healing and keeping tabs with myself and self-connectedness. But I think, yeah, just to a sort of like healthy degree. I feel like I think life comes about, and it's about going about life without being obsessed with it in this sort of health anxiety kind of mindset, but also having authentic self-connectedness to a healthy extent. I've written, yeah, so healthy self-connectedness, and the ability to kind of recognise my emotions. That's kind of what I mean by self-connectedness, and also kind of, yeah, as I said, checking in with myself, journaling, and just sort of being aware of things like that. So today is a new day mentality, because I do genuinely believe that, like, I don't know, it's like a quote in the Bible or wherever else that, like, it says, don't let the sun go down on anger, because it gives the devil a stronghold to like attack you or whatever. I'm not even sure like where that is from. I believe it's in the Bible, but it might just be a life quote. I'm not even sure. But yeah, today is a new day mentality. I do believe that like once something bad happens, like I do believe we go through seasons. That's the next one I've written down, I think, in a minute. But like I do believe that you do go through certain things that are really challenging for like short periods of time. Obviously like you can go through long periods of time as well, but I do think certain like with somehow, if when you look back, I feel like you do see that like you are always, I'm not saying like life doesn't have its like really really difficult times and everything, but you know, and whatever, you know, I don't know, but I think just in terms of like today's new day mentality, I do think a lot of things can get a lot better and can be learned from by the next day even, you know, and you can just feel a sense of relief just because the way we're programmed as people, like, and the way our emotions kind of do naturally regulate through things like sleep and stuff. Like you can be really, I'm not saying if you're like really really ill and like tired and have like insomnia or whatever, you can't have good sleep and just like be like on top of the world the next day. That's not what I'm saying. You know, you can have disturbed sleep and sleep's not the answer to everything, but like even from a sense of like your emotions generally, unless you're really struggling with chronic mental health problems that need to be medicated at that time. Again, I'm not a therapist, but obviously that does happen. I've experienced that myself, where you're just really really you know, not able to relax. But at the same time, even things like medications and stuff, when needed, can help bring that emotional level back to a healthy place. And like, you know, given, you know, recovering from mental health as an extra, you tend to be able to see like do that yourself. Generally, the idea of mental illness is that you've not had enough time to do that, and you need sort of like support and able to learn to do that yourself. Or better, because you've experienced trauma, which was for me. But anyway, let's not get all too deep into my issues in the past. So balance in general, again, I think this goes back to, I do like this idea of in general and not sort of being perfectionist about it, because I used to struggle with perfectionism, and sort of, you know, just the expectation, because narcissists and toxic people, they do put this expectation of perfection on you, from an external perspective, so you can internalize that and set this level of perfection as your like set point goal, and I just don't stand by that at all. Like that was a massive like relief of my anxiety when I was processing mental health issues right at the beginning. It's just so important, because it's not attainable for a start. It's a delusional idea. You know, I'm not saying bliss and stuff, and like some stuff can feel perfect sometimes. Obviously, you know, you're walked like a 10-mile walk on top of a beautiful mountain and you're seeing the beautiful scenes and the beautiful sky, and it's just this level of bliss and perfection at that time. Maybe not perfection, but like, you know, you can feel that sense of like idealism and bliss, and I'm not saying that that's unhealthy. I think it's really important to have that sort of like exhilarating, amazing, euphoric feeling sometimes of like, wow, like, you know, and that's way better than perfection. I think perfection connotes things like, you know, like rigid sort of structures that kind of have a unrealistic expectation. That's what perfection connotes to me, not like euphoric amazing experiences that are, you know, joyful and free. So yeah, that's why I kind of go with this sense of like in the general, because life does have ups and downs inevitably. Like the astrological environment has ups and downs, you know, things come up. In all senses, we inevitably, it says in the Bible, life is suffering. I'm going to get on to how suffering, if you don't learn from it, learning from suffering is I'm just to say that now, the concept of learning from suffering, yeah, because I used to literally validate my own fatalist mindset. I'm not blaming myself, but I think in my subconscious I had this sort of like fatalist mindset of certain things that had happened to me. I had this sort of like inevitable cycle I'm stuck in kind of mindset, you know, because you just do, and you continue cycles until they become have a resolution. And this idea of life is suffering kind of almost validated that for me, and that's just literally the worst thing you can do when you can use Bible quotes for your own demise. But at the same time, this idea of not that that's the Bible for this stuff, but some people, I don't know, concepts of learning from your suffering. Yeah, like they say life is suffering, but we're not sort of designed to consistently live in this head banging against a wall, brick wall kind of mentality of, if you're if you headbang and you like rock music, that sort of thing. But what I mean is like bang your head against the brick wall of it's kind of the general idea of rock music, isn't it? It's like outlet for stress and headbanging and all that. I honestly don't know what headbanging is. It's just what people do and that. But anyway, this concept of like learning from your suffering, like there's no reason to sort of resonate and in this sort of like level of suffering that is like, you know, fatalist or sort of inevitable, because we all have the autonomy to change our situation. We all have free will, like and it says so in the Bible, we have free will, like as a baseline thing. So but it's a case of learning from your suffering, but yeah, balancing the general, because as I said, concepts of seasons, I've said that, haven't I? And this too shall pass mentality. This concept of seasons, like we're going to struggle with different things in different seasons. That's something that I like to keep at the forefront of my mind, because it just helps me put things in perspective. I don't know whether this has come with age or what, but it's when you do struggle with something in a season that is really stressful, for example, you know, whatever that is for you. I feel like I've literally vented a bit in this video, but yeah, you do struggle with different things which can be really intense, and you can have like really like I just think, you know, it's not going to last forever. Like you're going to deal with that situation, transcend it, and kind of be able to move on and be sort of relieved from that situation, and then something else will eventually come up. But it's not about it's not about like living in that mentality of something else will come up. Like you transcend situations to become a better person, like a more developed person, and then you're more able to sort of like you know, be more like clever in the future, shall I say. So generally being on top of, what's that say, important things such as like money and stuff, but also realising autonomy of the self isn't involved in logistics, and there's other things to be a balanced person and have a healthy life, things like spirituality and stuff, and just being in touch with your emotions. I think while it's important and necessary, in the main, like obviously no one's perfect, obviously most people, again, it's this idea of perfection, keeping on top of things like bills and like, you know, your life situation and tasks that sort of like might be relevant to your life that work for you. Not to say that you should like just pick up random like, unless you obviously like want things to do. I think having something like in your life is a really important thing to have, like in terms of, but like I do think like life, yeah, but what I mean is like having that sense of, you know, portion of work in your life is what I meant, like sort of reward kind of mentality, but also like we all have like things that we have to do in our lives, but also realizing that the logistics, things like money and stuff, they're not something that is going to make you happy. Money doesn't make you happy. You can't buy happiness, in my opinion, at all. And I do believe more and more so that people that are obsessed with money and stuff, they're kind of potentially dark-minded people, potentially toxic people that literally are just driven to kind of do that stuff because they haven't really got any happiness to find in sort of more fulfilling areas. Like that is my honest belief. Not to say like we need people like that in the world to help a functional society, but at the same time, like I would never want to work in a corporate place, really, because I feel like it would be, not all corporate people are bad, but not at all. But anyway, it's not about being in certain jobs bad, but do you know what I mean? Like so, and then making time for pleasure is really important. I think this comes with the whole balanced lifestyle thing. I think making time for pleasure and like peace, meditation and stuff is actually really important, healthy for like regulating the mind in general in my life. Embodying the Holy Spirit, that's my religious sense, and practicing somatic healing and health. Somatic healing for me is just like massive. Like I do think things like journaling and obviously therapy and self reflection and all that sort of stuff and journaling techniques and whatever, so helpful for me, like obviously breaking cycles and like identifying negative patterns and stuff. But things like somatic healing, it's really just a massive tool for me. And I don't know some other people, especially like because I'm a physical empath as well. Like somatic experiencing is something that's really like important to me and has been really helpful and healing to my actual process of maintaining health in the past and ongoing. So that's something that I like to incorporate. Interestingly, as a ex-codependent, all of these things bar one, which is kind of, I mean, like, there's a couple of things related. There's like one thing related to toxic people, which I wouldn't relate to other people. But I think something I used to struggle with was codependency, and also having this sort of like projected anxiety of like, I think growing up with like toxic people, you do internalize this sense of like, I need to be hyper vigilant of what other people think, just because you're copying what's happening to the toxic person, how they think. But literally the only thing that is related to other people in a sense of functioning in society is composure. And I think that, as I said, was balanced with the situation, and I wouldn't want to ever act like a robot if I'm not one. But yeah, so that's my list, and it's very interesting to know that they're all about myself, more or less, because I think once you've got your internals right, the externals will follow. I'm definitely a massive believer of that. Not that you can't work from both sides. I think sometimes when you're in a really bad like some things at times it is about changing habits, and identifying negative habits. For example, if you know you're doing a certain thing, you can work the other way. I definitely believe that as well. I think you're going to come to a resolution anyway you go about a problem, as long as you're obviously like not making it worse. It's like chipping away at it. It's always going to be, you know, worked on and sort of resolved in some way. But anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.